So the way we like to do this session is I have a few questions that I would like to ask Mike. I'd like to spend the majority of the time taking questions from the audience. I know there's a lot of things that are happening today with the FBI. I know there's a lot of questions you might have on your mind, and that's why I said what I said earlier, that hopefully we'll have Mike stay back a little bit at the reception so that in case there's a question that we can't get to, you get a chance to ask that question. With that, Mike, I appreciate you making the time on a Saturday. I know that Saturday are family days, and I know it's a busy time for you, especially with elections right around the corner. The Cubs parade.
We have nothing to do with the election.
The Cubs parade that just happened, and as is, you've been very, very busy. But my first question to you is, just in general, what does the FBI do? I find that people have a very outdated understanding of the FBI's scope and services. When you talk to people, a lot of times people get confused as to even the jurisdiction. So if you can speak to that on a high level.
Sure, you bet. So nothing like bringing down the group after a nice, invigorating panel. Bring the FBI up here and it gets all real serious. So actually, as far as the FBI is concerned, I always look at it in what we do falls into kind of four main buckets. We've got our criminal program, we have our cyber program, we have our counterterrorism program, and we have our counterintelligence program. And so probably for the FBI, we have 56 field offices that cover the United States, and then we probably have 75 offices throughout the country. But those 56 field offices in the U.S., it's a little bit like McDonald's in the sense if you walk in an FBI field office, you know what you're going to get. Our structure is the same, our organizational chart looks the same. And by and large, the FBI spends most of its resources in the criminal program. So post 9/11, there was a lot of discussion about the FBI shutting down its criminal program and getting out of all of these other violations and focusing on international terrorism. And there was a calibration there, certainly post 9/11. But as it stands, most offices, including Chicago, spends most of its resources in the criminal program. Within the special agent in charge of each field office does have the discretion based upon the community threats, the atmospherics, the lay of the land, if you will, on how you move some of those resources around. So within the criminal program here, overwhelmingly, we are dedicating resources to violent crime and gangs. We just broke 600 homicides here in Chicago. I think we're approaching 3,000 shootings. We're probably going to break 700 murders by the end of the year, which, to put it in perspective, that is more than Los Angeles and New York combined, and it's not even close. So one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time here in Chicago, I've been here just a little over a year, is to really message that the FBI is in the violent crime business, and we are dedicating more resources to violent crime and gangs than international terrorism. And so we're trying to partner with the Chicago Police Department and ATF and DEA and all Cook County Sheriff's Office to really focus on neighborhood-based gangs and violent crime. So within the criminal program and also public corruption, a lot of action here in Chicago as well. That probably runs a close second in resources here in Chicago. And public corruption is going to run the gamut: contract corruption, judicial corruption, law enforcement corruption, municipal, regulatory, across the board, federal, state, local officials. Anybody that gets a government paycheck could be potentially investigated by the FBI for violent corruption. Then we also have crimes against children, which is a little bit part of our violent crime program. That's both online child exploitation as well as sex trafficking. We are still doing some organized crime. I learned from the last panel that Amish organized crime is something we probably need to look at. So in the meantime, Eurasian organized crime is probably the biggest threat that we're seeing here. There's still some of the La Cosa Nostra, some tentacles that still remain here, but by and large, we've done pretty well with that threat. Civil rights violations also in our program. That falls into really two main categories: hate crime, as well as color law, or what most people know as excessive force. So everything going on at Laquan McDonald and the Chicago Police Department, the overwhelming percentage of our work in civil rights is on colored law investigations. So I think, I forgot white collar crime. Healthcare fraud is at the top of the list. Investment fraud, corporate securities fraud, also very active, big financial sector here in Chicago. The industry has regulated itself quite a bit in mortgage fraud. So we're not seeing as much of that, but bank fraud is still active. Ponzi schemes, bankruptcy fraud that kind of rounds out our criminal program. Moving quickly to terrorism, international terrorism, and domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism, probably the biggest threat is the sovereign citizens, those individuals that are, disagree with the government to the extent that they will resort to a violent ideology. We also have animal extremists, environmentalist extremists, again, not focusing on their First Amendment rights, but focusing on the conduct in violent action. International terrorism, you are seeing, ISIS or ISIL as it's often referred, that group is still very active. It is receiving the overwhelming amount of our attention. The bad news is that ISIL continues to be a significant threat. The good news is that ISIL is crowding out some of the other extremist groups, Al-Shabaab, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, core Al-Qaeda, Arabian Peninsula. So we are seeing a little bit more of a shift to the ISIL threat, and that is even more so towards the homegrown violent extremism. The good news is we're seeing less of our cases and less of our activity in some of the more traditional areas that you were seeing post 9/11 or pre 9/11, which is mosques, cultural centers. We view those are not safe havens. Where we're seeing extremism is on the internet. And so we are becoming a lot more engaged on our social media platforms and using a lot of online covert employees to identify those cases and work those investigations. Foreign counterintelligence, big three, again, foreign actors looking to steal our state secrets or disrupt our governments. The big three continues to be People's Republic of China, Iran, and Russia.
In that order?
Not necessarily in that order. And then moving over to our cyber program. Our cyber program is focusing primarily on intrusions, both for economic gain and then also to disrupt the hackers and the denial of service attacks that we're seeing. So the cyber intrusion program continues to grow, and what we are seeing is a fusion of our cyber program with cyber intrusions with our foreign counterintelligence program, and looking at those actors, whether they're using humans to steal from the U.S. government or whether they're using cyber techniques. So we're seeing a fusion there. So I want to leave time for some additional questions, but that is, in short, what we do.
Wow, so as you guys can see, there's a lot that FBI does. And the reason why I say that is because I got to work with the FBI for a number of years on the community outreach program. I'm going to have Mike talk about that a little bit. And I can tell you, having lived in this country for a very long time, I had no idea the kind of things that they did, because I just looked at them and said, hey, they just deal with terrorism, and that's all they do. They don't deal with local stuff here. So Mike, on that note, can you talk a little bit about, because I got to know you when you first came here, I've known all your predecessors for quite a while. Can you talk about the community outreach programs? Because obviously there's a lot of immigrant communities in Chicago. I know you've done very well with the Pakistani community, the Indian community, the Muslim community in general. There's a lot of people here that have attended your Citizens Academy classes or have been invited to visit with you on Eid and different occasions. So can you just talk about that, how important that is to you, especially to Chicago and to you yourself as the special agent?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. I came in the FBI in 1995, so that's about 6 years before 9/11. I was working public corruption in Miami, and I was just working on my cases in a bit of a bubble. And I don't think it was until 9/11 that the Bureau recognized the importance and value of community outreach. And so you saw the FBI kind of stepping out from behind the curtain and trying to become more transparent and try to educate and inform and engage in dialogue with the community about what we do. And post 9/11, with the Arab American community and all the other communities out there that we realized we did not have those relationships with, we started that in earnest. And I think the Citizens Academy started, I believe, in 2003. Nationally, all 56 field offices do it. It's a program it's a 6-week program. I think it's one night a week at about 3 hours a pop, 6 to 9 for 6 straight weeks. And we go into a deeper dive on all those programs that I talked about. Then we throw in some other stuff too that's kind of fun. The polygraph program, the bomb program, weapons of mass destruction, and those types of things. And the idea is that we can inform while at the same time engage in a dialogue, bring in a cross-section of the community, those people that are influencers in the community, because these classes, we want to keep it intimate. So it's probably 30 to 35 folks per session. We do it once a year, and we've also been doing it in Rockford. And the idea is that we're hoping to develop ambassadors for the FBI out there that can spread the word and just be a lot more of an open organization than we have in the past. And so Amir's daughter actually was inspired by the Citizens Academy and created and spearheaded the Student Citizens Academy, which we launched this fall at the University of Illinois Chicago. And then on Monday at Loyola, I'm going to be doing some kickoff remarks. And so it's a very similar program, but now looking at college students. And then in addition to that, we have a program, the FBI Explorers program, that's doing something similar as well, trying to make it a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more approachable for kids, for the high schoolers, probably 8th grade to seniors in high school. So we're trying to. So the idea here is not only does community outreach is it extremely important for our investigations and for the community to build a level of trust with the community, but we're also looking at it as a recruiting tool as well. Because our director has said this publicly a number of times, we are in a diversity crisis in the FBI. In the last 20 years, we have gone the wrong way, and a phrase that I use frequently is we're too male, pale, and stale, old white guys in the FBI. And so in 20 years, we've actually we've regressed in that regard. And so diversity within the organization, because of the type of work that we do, and it's not just in international terrorism, but in violent gangs, we need a larger African American contingent. We need more Spanish speakers. If we are continuing to conduct investigations involving Russia and China, we need those speakers, and we need people to have those cultural sensitivities. So that is something that's also very important with our community outreach program.
And that's great because a lot of you in the community here can certainly be people that can think about in the future years about the Citizens Academy program. I know there's some students at the back, Mike, who are actually from the UIC program. So the UIC and the Loyola program was just started. I would encourage you to sort out from either Mike or myself or the UIC group. If any of you in the community have students that are at Loyola or at UIC, or Champaign as well. That's the third program that's been running. Please do ask us. Final question before we go to the question from the audience. So Mike, I know you came in on the back end of hearing a little bit about Open. Open is a global organization with a number of chapters. Chicago chapter is pretty vibrant. So I guess our question to you is, what role can organizations like Open Chicago play to counter the risks that we might face in businesses? A lot of people here run businesses, as you can tell. What kind of role could an organization like us and members of the community play to help the FBI?
Well, this is another area where the FBI has needed to pick up its game, and it's our Office of Private Sector Partnerships. And that is, and we have a number of organizations, DSAC, the Domestic Security Alliance Council, and the InfraGuard program, that is bringing businesses together and not just relying on Citizens Academy, but having these organizations together, because now with cyber attacks continuing to increase, those type of partnerships to ward against cyber intrusions, but also touches on terrorism. And also the private sector is getting a lot more involved in community relations for the betterment of their city in general, partnering with nonprofits. And so we need those business relationships as well. to fight the violent gang and violent crime threats that we have here.
Great. So let's now move on to some questions from the audience. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to move questions to the reception.
Okay.
Because
Can we just take one or two hires, just a couple of minutes, because we had a couple of people that had raised hands before. All right. So let's take 2 questions.
My name is Parvez Usman. I have 2 questions. One question is that there is so much killing going on in Chicago, and FBI or they have so many resources that they go overseas and they catch a lot of terrorists. How come we are not able to do anything here? I mean, it's in our backyard, and we are throwing a lot of resources overseas. We are not throwing our resources here. That's my one question. The second question is, when we come, when we travel overseas, when we come through the immigration here as a citizen, a lot of time they have too many questions. Don't they see in the computer what it is? Every time we come and they ask questions. What do you do? What is the business? Oh, you have so many businesses. Oh, you own property. I mean, if you own properties, what's wrong with it? So, I mean, they have everything in the computer. So, are they so dumb? They don't know. Or what they're trying to prove here, I mean, they have given us citizenship here, and now you're looking at us that they are doing something wrong. They know everything, and then why you take them into the room? I mean, once it passes through the just system, everything comes into there.
Yeah, let me take that second question first. That is going to be more Department of Homeland Security, TSA, that's going to be doing that type of screening. The FBI does get involved in some interviews and some activity at the airport, but if we do, it is usually part of a predicated investigation. So there's going to be more to the story. It's not a kind of a random process. As far as the second, your first question, the killing, as I mentioned, we are dedicating here more resources to violent crime and gangs than any other program. But at the same time, the FBI does have responsibility for a lot of programs that no one else can do. Public corruption, cyber, we have a huge footprint. There's a few other agencies that are involved in it. International terrorism, very few agencies have the capabilities and the international relationships, so we can't shutter that in light of the killings that are going on. The biggest challenge that we have right now, I would say, in those communities is building enough trust that they will talk to us and that they will tell us who did the shooting, because a number of these individuals, they know who shot who, but they will not tell us, and they will not tell the Chicago Police Department. Might be for a variety of reasons. They're worried about retaliation. They might think that they're going to just take care of it themselves through frontier justice, or they have a distrust of law enforcement that they don't believe that there will be a sufficient follow through. So it is something that I stay up at night. I'm thinking in every waking moment, every extra moment I have on what we can do about the violent crime problem, and pushing all the resources we can and trying to get as creative as we can.
First, the second, you may want to tell me about it.
Well, I mean, so there's a lot of programs that are out there, like Global Entry is one program, but as Mike said, a lot of those programs are done under Homeland Security and under different departments.
FBI doesn't deal with entry at that time, other than predicated investigations that they deal with. All right, one last question, then we'll go to ours. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Sadia Ofeli. I'm an artist, a curator, and a filmsmith. And just wanted to ask you or make a comment, and thank you for being here, that we as communities of Chicagoland and of the United States, we are so ready to join hands and to be able to form a partnership where there is empathy and understanding. That's the root cause of a lot of violence and crime and misunderstanding, and our younger generations going towards groups that are not positive towards any community. And I would just request you to please look into these very available resources which are here in all communities which are diverse, to be able to understand the cultural nuances, the importances, and from there, trust begins. So, we will welcome any kind of opportunities that you would want to have with students, with individuals, with leadership of the community. And thank you, Open, for providing us with that forum.
So thank you. Let me just make a final comment. So I gotta tell you, this gentleman really cares about the community. You can ask some of the students that are at the back that are in that UIC program that I talk about. He makes every effort to be there. You can ask Haris. Haris hosted one of the community events where Mike was there. I would challenge all of you, sort out Mike, sort out some of the talent that Mike has in his organization. They're always available to do town hall meetings if you belong to a certain group or a certain organization, or just want to put a group of people together and want to have Mike come and talk about a topic that might be relevant to you. I will tell you, this man is always available. So I'll leave you with that. Mike will be here during the reception, so ask other questions. And Mike, again, thank you so much.